Hello there. I decided to go back to the original recording format because live is just too nerve-wracking and a pain in the butt. So I'm sort of in a weird state right now. I've had an interesting past few days, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. And this is therapeutic. I get to share my feelings, and hopefully somebody gets to hear something they can relate with and that might be encouraging or helpful. So I've been dealing with a lot of anxiety, depression for a while, but depression seems to have subsided. I think that's right, yeah. But anxiety has still been there. Now, I also recognize the relationship between having GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. It's basically this whole tract right here is just jacked up. So between that and the anxiety, they work together, but they also work against each other. But it's when it's up here, that's where things get tricky, because I can feel something here, and then I try to talk myself out of it, rationalize it, and then at some point it just hits like, this ain't good, and then this goes crazy, and then I go into panic mode. So Sunday I ended up at the hospital because I was having a pain in my left chest, and I tried to talk myself out of it, and I thought, well, better safe than sorry, because you never know when you'll hit that point of life where something happens, and then the doctors say, well, if you'd have come in earlier, we could have caught this. So I thought, well, I'll go talk to a doctor, and ended up being admitted and going into full-fledged panic attack, pacing outside, crying, kept thinking about everything sad, seeing people there, even thinking like, man, they're bleeding from the head. And I'm sitting here crying because what? And don't get me wrong, I've been through a lot, but it doesn't negate what God has done in my life. And so the realization that came within that, I'm sorry, I need to put my hand back on the wheel. The realization I came from that is that, and let me say this, it reminds me of the disciples when they were in the boat, and Jesus had went on ahead and he said, I'll meet you on the other side. And so they're chilling in the boat, and the storm comes up, and they see this figure, this silhouette coming across, and they get scared. And then Peter, being Peter's like, Lord, if that's you, call me out to you, and I'll come to you. And so Jesus said, come. Peter obeyed. He got out of the boat. He put his feet on the water, and he began to walk. And at some point in this trip from the boat to Jesus, he lost sight and began to focus on the wind and the waves, the storm, the lightning, the thunder, all that. And he began to sink. So it makes me think of how I get so caught up in the wind and the waves in my life that I take my eyes off of Jesus, and then fear sets in. And even though Jesus was still in the presence, and it's not necessarily like Peter just turned his back on Jesus or walked away from Jesus, it was his focus. He wasn't focused on Jesus anymore, so he lost that power. And when you think about Philippians 4:13, says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. I can walk on water with the power of Christ. And I do want to give Peter, some props. He had enough faith to get out of the boat. He had enough faith to, first of all, he cried out to Jesus. And he said, if you command me, basically, whatever you command me, I'll do. Jesus said, come. Peter, listen. You know, that's how I want to be. I want to at least listen. Even though it might be scary, it might not make sense. You know, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. But in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. And that was Peter right then. It didn't make sense for him to walk on water. It didn't make sense for him to get out of the boat in the middle of the ocean in a storm, period, whether he walked on water or not. But he did it because he trusted in Jesus. He had the power from the Holy Spirit that Jesus was giving him, and he was able to walk on water. And even though he took his eyes off of him, he began to sink. Jesus, being who he is, loved him enough. He looked down at him and he said, you of little faith. And it wasn't a scolding like, you screwed up, it's over for you, buddy. It was probably, and I'm guessing, I just knowing Jesus's demeanor, I'm thinking it was more like a, you know, a little 2-year-old wobbling around the house and stumbles and falls. Excuse me. And you look down, oh, you little clumsy butt, you know, and you pick him back up. That's how I see that Jesus said how he said it to Peter. And so Peter recognized his life preserver, reached his hand out. Actually, Jesus probably reached his hand down first and said, I'm here. Peter reached his hand back up, grabbed a hold of it, and he pulled him back up, and they went back to the boat. At least that's what I think. I really remember the story exactly. Maybe they went to land. I don't know. But he was safe. He was cool. He was good. And it worked out for him. So the moral of this, it's like the song, I think it's Casting Crowns, that says, I will praise you in the storm. Is no matter what we go through, what's happening in our life, the trials and tribulations, which James tells us to count it all joy anyway, but whatever we're going through, we know that Jesus is there with us. We have the power through the Holy Spirit working in us and through us, and we can overcome anything. And so even though I was in that state of panic and scared and freaking out, I knew that I was okay. And I know that I'm going to be okay. And so for you who's dealing with that same issue, you're going to be okay as long as you trust in him. Now, if you keep trying to do things on your own, you're on your own. I'm sorry for you. But before my video runs out because I'm low space, that's what I got for you. I love you. God bless you. Be kingdom mended. Talk to you soon.